Hello. I'm Robert. Just a fortnight ago, my sister erupted at me in front of our parents. You've wrecked our lives, she spat. And they, silent and solemn, agreed, as if she'd spoken gospel. I didn't argue. I didn't shed a tear. I simply left, clutching my bag and the hush that followed me out the door. But this morning, I awoke to 14 missed calls. Now, they say they need me. What shifted? Before I get into it, tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from? Leave a comment. Maybe you, too, were cast aside, forgotten, until the moment your absence began to matter. Evening had already folded over the city, but inside the house, the atmosphere was thicker than dusk. My sister, Jessica, sat with immaculate poise on the edge of our oversized eggshell sofa, lit by the celestial glow of her ring light. She was signing off a livestream, some milestone about hitting 50,000 followers online. Our parents looked on, nodding along, as if she'd just announced tenure at a university. I lingered at the threshold between the kitchen and living room, cradling a chipped ceramic mug of tea I'd reheated twice already. No one had spoken my name in the past hour. I wasn't surprised. I'd mastered the art of becoming scenery. Sometimes I wondered if the walls noticed me more than they did. Then came the rupture. The screen on her laptop flickered. Jessica's voice pitched up, alarmed. Oh my God. Not now. Her carefully curated grin vanished. Why does this always happen when you're here? She hissed, sharp enough to draw blood. I blinked, caught off guard. What? You drain me just by existing, Robert, she snapped. Your energy messes with my alignment. I scanned the room, hoping someone, anyone, would call out the absurdity. But no one moved. Instead, our mother rose, dusting imaginary lint from her lap. She's not wrong, Nancy murmured, as if delivering a weather report. Every time something good comes along, you find a way to ruin it. You've ruined her life. Truly, you've ruined ours. My father remained quiet, rubbing the bridge of his nose like he'd seen this scene play out too many times to care. My throat burned with humiliation. Still, I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I didn't speak. I just turned and walked away, back down the hallway to the guest room they'd reluctantly let me use for now. The door stuck slightly as it closed. The carpet held the scent of stale dust and the faint, lingering note of air freshener that had long since lost its purpose. I moved with the detachment of muscle memory, shoving essentials into a weathered backpack I hadn't touched since undergrad. I didn't bother with anything sentimental. No photos. No letters. I'd stopped writing them years ago when I realized no one cared enough to read. 15 minutes later, I stepped into the night. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was headed. No one wondered if I'd return. The neighborhood was silent, the kind of eerie calm that settles after a fight so raw it leaves splinters in the air. I walked 2 blocks to the nearest gas station, its flickering fluorescence buzzing like a tired insect. I bought a granola bar and a bottle of water out of muscle memory more than appetite. The bus still run this late? I asked the clerk. Last one's due in 8, if he's not behind. He was. But I waited anyway, perched on the icy bench outside with my hands shoved deep in my coat pockets, my backpack anchored between my feet like a lifeline. When the bus finally came, I climbed aboard and didn't look back. The ride into downtown Portland dragged longer than it should have. I kept my gaze low, watching streetlights smear across the windows like brushstrokes on wet canvas. No one looked up. The anonymity felt oddly comforting. At the final stop, I stepped off and walked a few more blocks to a squat beige motel with flickering neon signage, one of those places meant for the desperate or forgotten. The man at the desk didn't even blink. He slid me a key with the number scratched out and rewritten in Sharpie. Cash or card, he muttered, eyes glued to a reality show behind him. I handed him my last $42. The room reeked of old smoke and overused disinfectant. I dropped my bag at the foot of the sagging bed and sat on its edge. The springs groaned beneath me. I didn't change clothes. I didn't cry. I simply stared at the watermark on the ceiling. It looked like a fractured heart, or maybe a dying star, depending on your angle. My phone lay face down on the nightstand. No buzz. No message. No where are you? No please come home. Just stillness. Until, it buzzed. Once. I picked it up, equal parts frozen and hopeful. A single notification glowed on the screen. Reminder, unopened Mother's Day gift from Robert, delivered 2 years ago. I remembered the box. Carefully wrapped. Tissue paper. A pair of silk handkerchiefs embroidered with her initials. I'd paid extra for the monogram. She never opened it. They never opened me. At dawn, I was already awake, watching pale light stretch across the skyline. I counted what remained, $270 and some coins. No job. No home. But that reminder, it didn't feel like a clock ticking down anymore. It felt like a dare. I walked toward the city center. My feet throbbed before I reached the first corner, but I didn't stop. Near the transit hub, a small cafe had propped a chalkboard sign outside. Free Wi-Fi. Unlimited coffee refills. That was all I needed. Inside, the air smelled of burnt toast and bleach. I ordered the cheapest coffee, $1.75, and slid into a seat near an outlet. I pulled out my phone and logged into some freelance tutoring platforms I had bookmarked but never used. One still had my old profile. I refreshed it. SAT/ACT prep, writing coaching, academic planning. Patient. Trustworthy. In the About Me section, I typed. I believe in the quiet bravery of showing up, especially when no one else bothers to. By midday, I had submitted applications to 16 different postings, parents anxious about test scores, students weighed down by the pressure of college deadlines. People I understood in a way my own family never cared to. Halfway through the 5th form, I paused, my gaze lingering on the line that read, reliable, compassionate listener. Grandma's voice echoed in my mind, you always listen best. She used to say that during Sunday dinners, while everyone else competed to be the loudest. I'd sit cross-legged near her feet, just listening. She saw something in me. Not something sparkly or boastful, but something honest. A lump formed in my throat as I remembered her funeral. We were standing in that too bright reception hall, surrounded by solemn acquaintances and unseasoned coleslaw. A distant family friend leaned in with gentle eyes. Your grandmother's second letter was so moving. I hope it brought you peace. Second letter? I asked, blinking. I only received one. She looked puzzled. Oh. I must be mistaken. She said she'd sent another. 8 months before she passed. I assumed you got it. But I never did. When I finally worked up the nerve to ask my mother, 3 days later, trying, still, to believe the best of her, she didn't even hesitate. It wasn't anything significant. Just your grandmother being sentimental. Just sweet old lady things. That letter, like so much else, had been dismissed. Discarded. Forgotten. A pattern so quiet, so persistent, you don't notice you've been erased until there's nothing left of you but the faint suggestion of someone who once mattered. I shook the thought loose and dove back into my applications. A soft ding interrupted me. One response. Then another. By week's end, I had 3 students, 2 teenagers prepping for exams and 1 adult learner working toward a GED. The library a few blocks from the cafe let patrons borrow Chromebooks for online sessions. I booked 2-hour windows each day and used them as though survival depended on it, because it did. The money was modest, but it was mine. Every cent hard-earned. And the students, they listened. They asked questions. They thanked me. One girl, Anthony, said during our second session, "You're the first person who's explained this so it actually makes sense." It was disorienting, being seen so clearly by strangers, when my own family had refused to look. That night, I returned to the motel, pulled out the receipt from check-in, and scrawled out my small earnings on the back, hours worked, PayPal payments received, how far I could stretch what I had left, 2 more nights. I glanced around that humble room. It smelled faintly of bleach and damp curtains, but it was mine for the moment. And that felt like enough. For the first time in years, a thread of pride stirred in my chest, delicate, but real. They never saw what I was building, I said into the stillness. Because they never believed I could. It wasn't just bitterness anymore. It was something cleaner, something clarified. I lay down fully clothed, my body exhausted but my mind thrumming. Through the walls, muffled voices flickered in and out. The vending machine outside hummed steadily. Just as I was about to switch off my phone, a post lit up on my feed. Family is who shows up when it counts. Never forget that. Jessica's caption. Her face beamed next to our mother's, both holding glasses of something effervescent. Their smiles were polished to perfection. But it wasn't their expressions that caught me. It was the photo on the wall behind them. The family portrait. Only I wasn't in it. I zoomed in instinctively, my eyes locking onto the wall's familiar texture. Same soft beige. Same gentle pool of light from the hall lamp. But the frame, it was new. Gone was the old portrait we took when I was 16, when they still pretended I belonged. In its place was something glossier. Curated. Jessica, predictably, was centered. Mom stood beside her, draped in a pristine cream cardigan. Dad wore a stiff smile like a borrowed suit. Even their golden retriever, Sprout, the one they adopted after I left, posed dutifully at their feet. A flawless tableau of the perfect family. Except I was gone. Not faded or overlooked, cut. Deliberately removed. I didn't cry. I thought maybe I would. But what rose in my chest wasn't sorrow. It wasn't quite anger either. It was a dense, wordless ache. Like watching someone toss a letter into the trash before reading it, then realizing it had your name on the envelope. I sat there, the motel's dim light casting shadows over the screen in my hand. Years ago, I might have offered them an excuse. Maybe they needed a smaller frame. Maybe they didn't realize how obvious the omission was. But not this time. This wasn't carelessness. This was a declaration. I'd been erased, not symbolically. Not emotionally. Tangibly. I scrolled back through more of Jessica's posts. Throwback to the good old days. Family dinner last Sunday. So grateful for my tribe. In each, I was barely visible, shoulder cropped, back turned, half a face in the margin. And now, I was simply gone. A memory stirred. I was 9, balanced on a stool for a group photo at church, trying to meet the camera's height. Jessica laughed and said, "Roberton always looks like she photobombed us." That time, Mom defended me, kind of. "She's just shy," she'd said. But they moved me to the end anyway. Easier to edit out. I blinked the memory away and reached into my tote bag, needing a task. I began responding to messages, organizing tutoring notes, filtering new inquiries. Until I opened my spam folder. There it was, a subject line I nearly missed. Family podcast opportunity. Sent by Jessica. I had been CC'd. My stomach tightened. I opened it. It was a short, professional email to a publicist, outlining a pitch for an episode on modern family dynamics and resilience in the age of influence. And at the very bottom, in a note clearly not meant for me. "She's just bitter and emotionally unstable. We don't talk for a reason. I don't want her involved. It's taking years to rebuild the family's image." My fingers curled around the phone, knuckles whitening. A high-pitched hum filled my ears. I reread the line once, then twice, then again. Each repetition struck louder, harder, until the words vibrated in my chest like a bell. Bitter. Unstable. Rebuild. Still, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I walked to the library the next morning and printed the email out, black ink on cheap white paper. Back at the motel, I taped it to the wall beside Grandma's letter. Two voices. Side by side. One believed I was capable of creation. The other didn't believe I was worth remembering. I grabbed a pen from the desk drawer and began charting it all on a page torn from the motel notepad. Dates. Comments. Offhand dismissals. The slow erasure. The silences that used to feel circumstantial but now rang deliberate. The casual betrayals, spoken behind closed doors and finally exposed in digital ink. It didn't feel petty anymore. It felt like evidence. Later that week, a notification blinked across my screen. An SAT prep collective based out of Dallas had reviewed my profile. They wanted to bring me on for virtual tutoring. $75 per student. A rate I hadn't seen in years. It meant freedom from counting coins for coffee refills. Freedom from hope as a currency. I accepted the offer with quiet precision. No fist pumping. No smiles. Just a solid, grounded sense of worth, the kind that doesn't need an audience. By Friday night, I had enough saved for a deposit on a small room in a shared house just outside the city. Not glamorous, but it had a lock on the door and no neon buzz from the parking lot. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, my thumb tracing the edge of the printed email. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And that's not the same. A knock broke the silence, quick, hesitant. I rose slowly and opened the door. There stood Daniel. My once best friend. She looked thinner than I remembered. Weary. In her hands, wrapped in a faded dish towel like something fragile, was a small envelope. "Robert," she said gently, her voice fraying. "They told me you were spiraling." I didn't believe them, not until I saw this. I stepped aside. She hesitated at the threshold, like crossing it meant crossing some invisible line. Then she offered me the envelope. My name written across the front in handwriting I instantly recognized, my own. Soft loops. Rounded letters I hadn't drawn in months. My chest constricted. "It's still sealed," she whispered. "I found it in your mom's desk. Buried beneath a pile of expired coupons." I didn't move to take it. I just stared. "I wasn't snooping," she added, setting it down on the microwave table. "I was dropping something off for Jessica. Nancy had me wait in the kitchen, and there it was, just there. Like it didn't mean anything." I picked it up at last. The envelope was uncreased. Untouched. It looked exactly as it had the day I mailed it, last year, for my mother's birthday. I'd saved what little I had to tuck in a gift card for her favorite cafe. And I'd written a letter. About rebuilding. About maybe, just maybe, finding our way back. She'd never opened it. Daniel sat across from me. Her mouth parted, then closed again, as if words were too small for the moment. I slid a fingernail under the flap. The glue released without effort. I unfolded the pink card inside, reading my own handwriting under the hum of the fridge. "Mom, if there's still a space in your heart for me, I'd like to sit there again. Not asking for everything. Just a call back. I miss our Tuesday talks. I miss you. Love, Robert." I read it twice. Then I folded it back up. I didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Not when even my written words weren't worth opening. Not even worth discarding. Just tucked away. Forgotten. Like a sweepstakes ticket that didn't win. Daniel finally broke the silence. That wasn't all I found. She reached into her bag and slid several pages across the table. From Jessica's new project. The Success Academy, or whatever name she's giving it now. "You and I used to build this stuff together. I'd recognize your voice anywhere." I flipped through the printouts. And there it was. My work. My diagnostic models. My pacing guides. The carefully crafted diagrams. Even the layout, fonts, and color scheme we'd designed together during our senior year. All of it. Now paraded under Jessica's brand. She'd stolen it all. She said you gave it to her, Daniel added quickly. But I knew that wasn't true. I let out a breathless, hollow laugh. Even my sidebars, I murmured. Even the section headers. My voice trembled, but I didn't move. I didn't rage. Stillness held me, like if I shifted, the betrayal would shatter something I couldn't repair. Daniel stayed a while longer. Quiet. Steady. Then she hugged me tight, her tears brushing my cheek, and slipped out into the night. Silence returned. I slid down to the floor, back against the wall, knees pulled in close. No music. No TV. Just the hum of the mini fridge and the occasional gurgle of aging pipes. Then, the buzz. The phone lit up. Missed call, Dad. Then another. And another. I watched the number rise. 14. Then came the voicemails. I ignored the first few. But the final one cracked through. It was my father. Roberton, your sister's being torn apart online. Some blog caught wind of the story. They're calling it plagiarism. People are angry. She says you're lying, but we need you to help calm things down. She's unraveling. No apology. No admission. Just the same refrain I'd heard my entire life. We need you when it's burning. I didn't call back. I didn't respond. I simply watched the screen flicker on. Then off. Then on again. The buzzing was incessant. Like a mosquito whining at the edge of sleep, too small to squash, too persistent to ignore. They only ever reach out, I whispered into the dark, when I'm the one who can undo the damage. My limbs felt leaden. I curled forward, forehead resting on my knees. Still no tears. This wasn't grief. This was something else. Slower. Quieter. Deeper. Like standing in the ruins of a home and realizing it never really had walls to begin with. I opened my laptop and hovered over the folder labeled Curriculum Archive. My finger rested on the delete key. For a moment, I considered it, letting it all go. Wiping away everything, as if to echo the way they tried to scrub me from the story. But then, a glimmer caught my eye. A folder I hadn't noticed in years, Grandma, Legal. I clicked. Inside was a scan I'd long forgotten, an old image file titled Will_Oberton. I opened it. There it was, plain and unmistakable. My grandmother's handwriting, elegant, deliberate. Her signature beneath a clause that named me, Robert, as the sole inheritor of her educational work, her lesson plans, tutoring models, frameworks, and all related intellectual property. I wasn't just her student. I was her successor. And the file had been scanned 5 years ago. Buried. Ignored. Protected in silence. By morning, the weight of that file still hadn't lifted. As sunlight crept through the dusty blinds of my small apartment, the screen seemed to glow beneath it, bathed in pale gold like it had been chosen. The language was clear, unequivocal, her script as formal as it was affectionate. All intellectual property and preparatory curriculum created or co-developed with Roberton Shipley shall remain under her sole name. She had safeguarded me. Quietly. Legally. And my mother had buried it without a glance. As I sipped lukewarm coffee from a mug chipped at the rim, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. The second that morning. I didn't want to press play. But I was already unraveling. What harm could one more unraveling do? Nancy's voice filtered through, soft and fraying at the edges. Roberton, please, you can't just let the family come apart like this. Your sister's career is hanging by a thread. She said the family, but she meant them. The ones who replaced my image in photographs. The ones who left my words sealed in a drawer, buried under coupons like forgotten receipts. Then came another voicemail. This one from Jessica. Her voice was taut, cracking with panic. You're bitter. You're always bitter. We gave you everything, and this is how you thank us? I could picture her perfectly, storming through some curated space, mascara running, fury clothed in victimhood. We gave you everything, she said again. I let the words sit in the air like bad perfume. I whispered to the silence, you erased me, and still expect me to save you. My hand didn't tremble as I printed the will. No histrionics. No tears. Just clarity. I pinned it to the wall beside the email screenshot and Grandma's original note. One typed. One printed. One written by hand. Each piece told the same story. They had tried to make me vanish. And now, in crisis, they were asking me to reappear, to fix the fire they'd set. I stared at the wall, the paper edges curling in the breeze from the old radiator. By midday, I'd made my decision. I looked up a lawyer in Austin who specialized in intellectual property. No fanfare, just a quiet appointment made through a contact form. When I arrived, I brought the printout. Calm. Composed. I'm not looking to sue, I told her, my voice steady. At least, not yet. I want this documented. Verified. Public. I want my name on record. I want the ownership to be formal. Known. The lawyer, a woman named Matthew, maybe in her 50s, read the clause with one arched brow and a measured nod. You don't need a lawsuit to reclaim what's already yours, she said, tapping the document. You need a declaration. I left with a folder of notarized documents and the sun at my back, casting long lines across the sidewalk. For the first time in years, something unfamiliar stirred in my chest. Control. But peace? That didn't stay long. That night, there was a knock. 3 times. Firm. Recognizable. I looked through the peephole and froze. Nancy. Charles. Jessica. I opened the door but didn't invite them inside. We stood in the narrow hallway, the air brittle and still. Everything between us felt glass-thin, fragile, dangerous, on the verge of shattering. Nancy looked worn down. Lipstick faded. Hands clasped and trembling. Charles remained silent, like he always did, eyes darting to the floor. Jessica, her eyeliner was smudged, her shine dulled. She was breaking, and she knew it. We made mistakes, Nancy began, voice papery. We know. But family means forgiveness. I didn't blink. No, I said quietly. Family meant opening my envelope. Family meant not burning my letters. Family meant including my name in your grateful posts. Nancy's gaze dropped. I turned to Jessica. She met my eyes like a child unsure of the rules now that she'd been caught. This time, I told them, stepping back inside, I'm not the one fixing what you broke. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I simply closed it. Clicked the lock. Later, after a long shower and a mug of chamomile tea, I checked my email. And froze. A red notification pulsed at the top of the screen. Your professional site has been flagged and temporarily suspended due to multiple copyright violation claims. I clicked for details. Someone, using an anonymous IP, had submitted claims against my own curriculum. My stomach turned to stone. They'd come after me again. Not with accusations. With paperwork. One final attempt to erase me for good. But this time, I was ready. By dawn, the sky outside had turned the color of wet cement. Morning light pushed through the window not like hope, but like pressure. I reached for my phone, expecting tutoring updates or student pings. Instead, I was greeted by a red banner stretched across the top of the screen. Your website has been temporarily suspended due to a reported copyright violation. I sat up, breath hitching, but my hands didn't shake. A second alert followed. Then a third. The subject line's identical, clinical. At first, I assumed it was a glitch. A system hiccup. Maybe an overzealous bot mistaking my work for something else. But as I clicked through the details of the copyright claim, the chill crept into my bones. Proprietary content in use without consent. There was no sender name, just a masked IP address tied to the complaint. Silent. Faceless. But Matthew was faster than I was. Within the hour, she called. It traces back to Jessica's branding agency, she said, her voice crisp and unwavering. This isn't random. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I exhaled, opened a new folder on my desktop, and began. Screenshots, one after another. Every timestamp lesson, every outline, every flowchart and diagram I designed. I pulled the PDF of my grandmother's will, highlighting the clause that enshrined my legal ownership of her educational work. I even dug up early drafts I'd stored on a long-forgotten cloud drive, files dated years before Jessica had even whispered the name of her so-called academy. I wrote my counterclaim with the poise of someone with nothing left to prove. I don't scream anymore, I type to myself. I document. That same afternoon, I sent a quiet, composed email, not just to the platform board where my content lived, but to my clients, my colleagues, my contacts. No drama. No finger-pointing. Just facts. In light of recent confusion, please find attached original course materials, development drafts, timestamps, and proof of ownership secured through notarized family documentation. Thank you for your continued trust. Replies trickled in within minutes. Some surprised. Many supportive. But one message brought me still. It was from a parent I'd worked with the previous autumn, a single mother in Houston. Your course saved my daughter's future. Don't let them take this from you. I printed that one. I pinned it beside the will on my wall. One paper was born of blood. The other, of labor. Together, they meant something undeniable. By dusk, the backlash had begun. Not mine, hers. Jessica posted a veiled jab on her public feed. Funny how people rush to take credit when the hard part's done. But this time, the internet didn't fall in line. Within the hour, a former intern, someone she'd likely dismissed without a second thought, released screenshots, archived files, timestamped templates. Canva drafts. Internal chat logs. All of them traced back to me. The comment section turned sharply. This is textbook erasure. Where's Robertson's name in any of this? Wild how people buy the family brand without asking who built the foundation. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I sat on my scuffed couch, peppermint tea in hand, laptop balanced on my knees. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I didn't feel erased. I felt rooted. Then, just after 10 p.m., Matthew called again. Her tone was cautious. Robertson, she said, I don't want you to panic. My breath slowed. The rhythm of readiness returned. Tell me. Jessica's team filed for an emergency injunction. They're attempting to freeze your site permanently. A beat passed. There's more, she added. You've been named in a Reddit thread that's gaining momentum. Not a dialogue. Not a reckoning. An ambush. I placed the tea down gently. Looked at the wall where my proofs hung like armor. This wasn't just personal anymore. It had gone public. And now, it was a war of record. The next morning, I didn't rush to my inbox. I made coffee. Let the kettle wheeze its long breath. I cracked the window open and let the cold air sting my skin. I wanted to feel awake. Only then did I sit down at my desk. The subject line waited like a wound. Formal injunction filed, cease and desist pending court review. Matthew had prepared me. Still, seeing it in stark black text knocked something loose inside. This wasn't a challenge to my content, it was an effort to bury my existence. Below the email was the injunction. My name. My platform. My students, frozen mid-lesson. Almost simultaneously, a friend forwarded me a Reddit thread. At first, I resisted the urge to open it. But something like defiance, or maybe resolve, pulled me in. The title, "My Sister Stole Everything from Me and Turned Our Family Against Me." The username was vague. But the phrasing? It was Jessica's tone, practically trademarked. She'd flipped the story. Now she was the wounded party. Now I was the vindictive sister seeking vengeance. The comments came in waves. Who does this to their own family? Ungrateful much? Some people can't handle someone else's success. I nearly clicked away. But then, near the bottom, one short reply. Funny how the receipts always show up when the loud ones overplay their hand. It stopped me. Quiet. Unshakable. A reminder, I had the receipts. All of them. I didn't hesitate. I opened my webcam. Kept the lights low. No makeup. No edits. Just me. And I spoke. Not with fury. Not with grief. I placed the printed will in frame. Read the clause aloud. Showed the notarized signature. Then I screen shared the curriculum drafts. The timestamps. The original files. The side-by-side comparison with Jessica's rebranded copies. Then, the emails. One from her branding agency. One from her PR team. Each carefully scrubbed of my name. I looked directly into the camera. They say silence is strength, I said, my voice steady. But sometimes truth needs a voice. This is mine. No music. No transitions. No pleas for sympathy. I clicked upload. And let it go. The messages poured in, swift, steady, like rain that doesn't start with thunder. Parents, former students, even teachers I barely remembered reached out. She believed in my kid when nobody else did. This woman is why my daughter kept going. She explained things when the system failed to. A retired educator shared one of my lesson decks with a note, "Let the work speak." Someone on TikTok spliced my quiet voice into a montage, no drama, just slides and facts and a steady hand holding paper. Even Reddit, that ever-spinning wheel of strangers and speculation, did something rare, it stopped. The original thread was locked, flagged as misleading. A narrative undone by truth. And late that night, in the hush between everything, my mother called. Her voice had no shine to it. No polish. Only weariness. "We should have protected you." That was all she said. Not forgiveness. Not explanation. Just a sentence carried on tired breath. She didn't ask for anything. For once, she didn't reach. And for the first time, neither did I. A few hours later, a courier knocked. A slim box. A clipboard. My name written in deliberate ink. "Signature required," he said. Inside was an envelope, ivory, thick, embossed with a law firm's name I didn't need to Google. I sat down, opened it, and read. Proposed settlement. Full restoration of intellectual credit. Legal acknowledgement of authorship. In return, silence. No public comment. No future claims. No mention of the past. And a check. 6 figures worth of "let it be over." But peace isn't something you purchase. Not like that. I held the paper in my hands. Turned it once. Then again. It didn't tremble. It didn't tempt. I wasn't who I used to be. I slid it all into the shredder and watched the blade swallow it. That afternoon, I posted one image. Just black text on a pale background. Silence is not the price of peace. And family isn't immunity from consequence. It spread, fast and wide. Not because it was flashy. But because it said what so many had swallowed. Women reposted it not to make noise, but to make space, for each other, for themselves. I thought I was the only one. This gave me the words. This time, I didn't back down either. In the small room I now used as my office, no neon sign outside, no hushed shame in the walls, I pinned up 2 pieces of paper. 1. The wrinkled page I took from the motel, the one Grandma once underlined for me. You will build what no one sees today. The second, the letter from my lawyer. Ownership recorded. Curriculum protected. Name restored. It wasn't grand. The desk was second-hand. The window faced a bus stop. But I didn't need grand. I needed real. And that's what I finally had. My family never called again. Not when Jessica's site vanished from the web. Not when I heard whispers that the house had been sold. That maybe Nancy needed the money. Or just the distance. I didn't chase the reasons. I didn't ask the questions I used to ache for answers to. They weren't villains. They were ordinary people who made the coward's choice, because it was easier to dim my light than admit they'd never lit it. I didn't fight them to win. I fought to stop apologizing for being whole. And freedom? It doesn't roar. It rests. Last month, I started a small fund in Grandma's name. Just enough to help a few students each year, ones who, like me, were always told to dream smaller, quieter. The thank you notes started arriving. One was from a boy I tutored years ago, back when I worked from borrowed library Wi-Fi and coffee shop corners. You told me I could make it. And that was the first time I believed anyone. I held his letter in my hands, not because it hurt, but because it healed. This was the life I built, not loud, not golden. But strong. A few days ago, I printed out that line Grandma wrote, the one I now understand in my bones. I folded it into an envelope. No return address. No explanation. Just the words. You will build what no one sees today. I mailed it to a girl I once taught, one who whispered that her voice was too much, who had already learned to silence herself before the world could. Because maybe one day, she'll find herself standing on the edge of the version of herself she was told to shrink. And maybe those words will catch her before she falls. So I ask you. Have you ever stopped waiting for the apology that never came, and found something better? Not revenge. Not noise. But peace. Have you been erased, and chosen to rebuild, not louder, but on your own terms? If so, tell me. Leave your story below.